Today we looked at graphing equations. So the equation above would be an example of one we could graph. What we're saying is every y equals something after we plug in the x value. So if you're not given x values, you can usually decide on any ones you want. I usually go with 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. After that, all you're doing is plugging in to say, well, what does y equal when x is one of those values? So in the first case, 0 plus 2. So y would give you 2. Then you can look at what does y equal when x is 1? Well, it's 3. And you keep going down your list. Then, before you graph it, some people like to write out their coordinates. So the coordinates are your x first, with a comma, and then your y value. So you have x, in the first case, 0, and the y was 2. Then when I go to graph it, I remember, okay, when x, which is the horizontal line, is 0, I go up 2, and put a dot there. The next one, I go over to 1, and I go up 3, put my dot there. 2, and 4, and so on. Obviously, this graph would have to be a lot bigger. When looking at the pages we completed in class, you're doing the same thing. So you have an equation. You're going to plug in whichever x value you need to solve for, and then figure out what that gives you as a y value. So for the first one, if x was 1, then y would equal 2. You continue on down the line, coming up with your coordinates that symbolize your x and y, and then you can graph it. All the graphs on these would come up with a straight line because they're all linear equations. The second page is a bit different only because we have to do a multiplication before we can solve for y. So in the equation above, I'm going to multiply my x value by 2 and then subtract 1 to give me my y value. In this case, it's 0 minus 1. That gives me minus 1 as my y. I keep going down the line and see how does that affect my graph. Same thing with the one below. I'm going to end up multiplying it by 3 first, and then adding 2. So in the first case scenario, when x was negative 2, it gave me negative 4 for my y, because I had to do negative 6 plus 2. So watch out for those negatives. You can go into the negative part of the graph. The last thing that might trick somebody up would be on the very last page. We have the equation x plus y equals 5. This is just out of order. So if you wanted to, you could say I can put the x onto the other side by making it a negative, by doing the opposite. So in this case, our equation is y equals negative x plus 5. Then you can go about solving it the same way.